Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of Wellington Shire Council on this Tuesday, 19th of March. Members of the public gallery should note that the Council records and publishes Council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate time during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with the Council via the webcasting chat room should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Would members of the gallery and councils ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting? And if we could now stand for the acknowledgement and the prayer, and could I ask you to remain standing after we've completed the prayer as well. So we acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the true good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. While you remain standing, I'd just like to take this opportunity on behalf of Council and my colleagues and in fact the wider Wellington community, a community which is often confused on the internet as being in another country, that of New Zealand, to take this opportunity to pass on our sincere condolences to the people of New Zealand and in particular those who have been affected by this absolutely horrific and tragic circumstances that occurred last Friday. So if you just join me now in a minute's silence. Thank you very much. As CEO, there are no apologies. Any declaration of conflicts of interest? Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to declare a conflict of interest for C5.1, which is indirect interest, conflict of duty.
Thank you, Councillor Bye. No one else? If we could move on then to item A4, confirmation of minutes of the previous council meeting. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move the council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of the 5th of March 2019.
Second of that motion, Councillor Ma. Motion is not opposed. Motion is carried. There's no business arising from the previous meeting, CEO. Any late items? And there are no notices of motion. I note that under item A8, moving on to receiving petitions or joint letters, that today we received a petition in regard of support in regard to the movement of some 10 electronic gaming machines from the Sale Bowls Club to Sporting Legends, and given that was received today, that matter will be considered at our next meeting. Item A9, any invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements? A10, any questions on notice? None as well. We move on then to item A11, the Mayor and Councillors' activity report. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move that the Mayor and Councillor activity report be noted.
Second of that motion, Councillor Crosley. Motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Stevens?
Yes, well, I think I've had the pleasure of moving this report's adoption before, and I'll probably make the same observation I've made previously, Mayor, so I apologise in advance for that. And just it's interesting to see that when we look at the the report of the activities that you and the rest of the councillors have been involved in, the diverse range of activities, presentations, events that we all go and attend in the course of our daily work as councillors. So I think it's really good for us all to get around, because people do seem to be quite happy to see a councillor present and taking an interest in their various events and activities. So well done to all councillors for their efforts.
Could I just also support that, because I've been particularly grateful for the efforts that all the councillors have gone on. There's been so much to do in this last little while, and you can't be everywhere, and so I'm really grateful for the councillors who've got out and about and covered off so many activities as reported. Thank you. We're moving on to item A12, the Youth Councillor report, and we have the Youth Mayor in attendance, who perhaps, Beck, you'd like to come forward and give us a summary of how things are in your part of the world.
Alrighty. Good evening, councillors. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Wonnangatta-Crooked people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. We last came to council asking for a request for support in advocating to our local MPs for the existing headspace centres in Bensdale and Morwell to include an outreach service into Wellington as a part of their increased funding. We would like to acknowledge the letters sent on behalf of Council to MPs showing their support. Thank you. Youth councillors found this prompt show of support by Council affirming, and it was great to be able to share this action with the Youth Affairs Council of Victoria at our camp in January. Since those letters were sent, a lady by the name of Sharon Hall approached Youth Council asking for our support to petition for a physical headspace centre in Wellington. Her children have accessed headspace centres, and she knows the importance of headspace centres, and that even though we do have Bensdale and Morwell, they are exceptionally busy, because all the youth in this area goes to either one of those, and they can't handle it, and it's really hard for us to access. So we have jumped on board with this, and we are really happy to be supporting this initiative. Youth Council have been around, we've taken the petition into our schools, we've gone around town and tried to get as many signatures as possible. And one of our youth councillors, Charlie Vernon, will be accompanying Sharon Hall in Youth Council uniform, which we'll get to later, to present the petition to Darren Chester at a date that will be confirmed in late March or early April. And that leads me on to our obvious new news. Our new uniforms are here. Yes. We love the fresh look and feel very proud to be in our uniforms. We know that a lot of hard work went into designing these. We were back and forth with the design teams, coming with fantastic ideas, and we ended up going with the orange. So there is a t-shirt. I was just a bit chilly, so therefore didn't wear it. But there's a very bright orange t-shirt. We did end up sticking with the orange, even though there was speculation about picking some different colours, maybe some blues or purples. But we ended up staying with the orange one because it was really noticeable, very visible, so we knew people would know who we were, and we were able to be approached. And we found that people, when we were walking around approaching people for signatures, that they really recognised that we were a part of the Youth Council. So hopefully people will start recognising our logo. March and April are very busy months for us as we hold our Colours of the World run next Saturday. So if you would like to attend, you're more than welcome, as usual. And our Victorian Youth Week, which begins the following week. And a part of that, we have the YMCA Skate Parks League, so our skate competition, which some of you may have seen last year. So we're really very busy organising this, because we've ended up with over 650 people registering their interest to come to the Colour Run. So the Colour Run basically is about celebrating cultural diversity, so all different colours coming around from all the world. So definitely looking forward to that. In January this year, Propeller members joined Youth Council members at a Melbourne camp. The purpose of this time was to get to know each other and better understand the different roles we play and how we can work together to create greater outcomes for broader youth in the community. The bulk of the time was spent at a consultation into the response the Youth Affairs Council of Victoria would give to the Royal Commission into mental health. So there was a lot of other youth groups that were there, some older groups as well were a part of it. And we also went to a workshop about delivering freezer events. So Freezer is a big community that Propeller especially works with, but when we work with Propeller, and all our events are also come under the freezer activities. We all gain something out of these opportunities, and without a doubt Propeller and Youth Council have a greater understanding on how to better complement each other going forward. As always, we welcome any councillors who would like to attend our Youth Council meetings in part or whole to do so, and we would like to thank you once again for your ongoing support.
Thanks, Beck. Well done. So in regard to the motion, Councillor Marr.
I move that Council receive the Youth Mayor's Quarterly Report.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor by just that much. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
Beck, I'd like to say well done to you and Youth Council on the hard work that you've undertaken so far, especially in the effort on mental health and the headspace issue that you have brought to Council as front and centre by the Youth Council, which shows that you have been able to influence the community with your leadership and advocacy skills within the community. So well done on that. It's also reflected in the participation at the recent workshop with the Youth Affairs Council of Victoria, which is it's a pretty big thing for our Youth Council to take part in that. Councillor Stevens and I recently took part in a mental armour workshop here in Sale, which provided mental health resources and provided information that 1 in 5 Australians aged between 16 to 85 experience mental health issues, and suicide is the leading cause of death in the age groups of 15 to 44 years of age. It certainly highlights that having a headspace centre within the Wellington Shire would be very good, particularly in light of the lack of transport opportunities for those locally based. I'd also like to congratulate you on the uniform, because it's really fresh, it's youthful, and it actually looks fantastic. And well done for keeping the orange, because as councillors we certainly all know that when we see that orange t-shirt or shirt, we know that you're a Youth Council member, and I think that it's certainly become a symbol of Youth Council within Sale. So good luck with the colour run. I'll certainly look forward to seeing pictures, and I'd certainly encourage any councillors that are sitting here today to take part and support the Youth Council in this great initiative. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. Councillor By.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'd also like to say a couple of things. One thing, I'd like to congratulate Kim from the Comms unit for helping design the great uniforms, and thank you very much for her efforts. I'd also like to comment on the colour run. Well done, committee. Something that's out of the box. I don't think we've ever had a colour run that I can remember. I'd like to go to it, but it's already totally booked out when we go online to try and book. To have that many people participating in something like that is fantastic. And people from the outside the area will be coming as well. So even though I can't participate, I'll be there to support, because what a great initiative. So well done.
Councillor Rossetti.
And a quick congratulations on your delivery. There's plenty of people who actually stand up and read everything they say, and it doesn't engage. You actually today engaged beautifully. I think it's the best youth mayor speech I've ever heard.
Good, so score from our judges.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, we apparently need a twirl. Oh, good job.
So if anyone doesn't know what this is,
It's Wellington. So Matt, yeah.
In wine grapes.
Yep. So that's true. Yeah, that's mountains to the east.
He looks at it as wine grapes.
Yeah, mountains to the valleys, from the oceans to the alleys. That's it.
It's an equalogue. It's an equalogue.
All right. Thank you very much. We might move on to item B, Report of Delegates. Councillor Hole, I understand you something for us?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick report. The Municipal Association of Victoria, or the MAV as we all know it, has just recently conducted its 2 yearly elections for office bearers, and it's a great delight to say that it's now an all-female-led organisation. The CEO is female, the president elected, both vice presidents, the legal advisor, the governance officer and the IT manager are all female, and yet around the table we've got 10 male delegates as part of the board. So it's a fairly balanced set of circumstances, but there's some interesting changes coming, and all for the betterment. It's now time, after 20 years of one CEO, to move on with a new one, and I think we're going to find some exciting times for the MAB.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. We can move on to item C1, the elder statesman, the Chief Executive Officer's report. Councillor Rossetti.
I move that the Chief Executive Officer's report be received.
The seconder was Councillor McCubbin. Is that opposed? If not, the motion's carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I just particularly pick up there the meeting that we had with our upper house representative, because it just reflects on so many things we do, we need other levels of government to do. Given that we only have a turnover of $60 million from rates revenue, thereabouts, give or take, we need to get other levels of government on board to do most of the things we want to do in projects around our shire. So I commend the Chief Executive Officer for going out and arranging those meetings with Jane Garrett, for example, to actually advocate for what we need. So it doesn't take long to look at the sorts of projects we've had around the area in the last 10 or so years and realise there's no way we could have done them ourselves, but they've really bettered our communities. The Longford to South Gippsland Highway raising of the flood levels. The work so far on the sale to travel duplication, new police station, new ambulance station, new specialist school, the expansion of the RAF, the various MID upgrades, the sporting infrastructure that we've got around the place, the hockey field, the GRSC, the work on our entertainment areas like the Botanic Gardens, the Leaf, the Port of Sale, this magnificent building we're in here with the library and art gallery, which my daughter told me as soon as she saw it, it's too good for sale. Well, it is something quite extraordinary for our community, and we all enjoy the fruits of that. The amount of projects that we're getting from the Latrobe Valley Fund funded, even just the fence around the cemetery at Sale, which they could never afford to do themselves. All of these projects don't come just fall out of the sky. It's because of advocacy and working with these other levels of government. The truck bypass is being mooted at the moment. The Sea Spray Surf Lifesaver Club, the Yarram drainage, the upgrade to the Yarram Main Street, the upgrades to the various pools. The list goes on. And it's all because of this work that we do with these other levels of government. And it's a credit to the council and to the community members who advocate on our behalf, and the council staff for actually being able to make these things happen. Because I can see around many other councils that they don't get these sorts of responses. And when they're dysfunctional and arguing against each other, and you don't have to look too far to see councils in that position, the other levels of government aren't that interested in investing in them, but they're very interested here. So I commend the CEO, staff, and councillors, and those community members who get involved for the great outcomes we get for our community here.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. I understand Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate one other thing on the 11th of March. Look, it's a great thing like the LVA does for our region, but also they put on a great sporting game. They were lucky enough to bring down again this year, which I think is the third year, Collingwood versus Carlton. So I went down with the CEO, and the CEO was barracking for Collingwood, which was magnificent to see. But credit to the LVA to bring that sort of game to our area that people can participate in. And I'd like to thank Eddie Maguire for pulling me out of the hat and giving me 2 free President's Lunch tickets, which was fantastic. So I'd just like to add those to the gift register. Thank you.
So
they will go in the gift register. We're just working out the value of them, Mayor.
Wouldn't be, And given that comment in regard to Collingwood, will be an interesting performance review when we get to it for the CEO, no doubt. So, moving on to item C 1.2, the February 2019 Council Performance Report. Have a move. Oh, Councillor McGovern.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council receive and note the February 2019 Council Performance Report as attached.
Second to Councillor Crosley. Is that opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor McGovern.
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to show what an exciting month February has been for the Shire. A whole lot of activities that are occurring in and around the Shire, which we need to be proud of, and of course a difficult time with the drought, the ongoing drought, and of course the bushfires that are occurring all around it. And right from the get-go, I'd like to celebrate and commemorate, I guess, the fact that our officers have been working so hard with members of our community, our CFA and so on, in the protection of our Shire in this rather difficult time. I think this is where, this is where local government steps up and works with its local communities to provide the sort of safety that they need. And I say this in regard to the whole of the state of Victoria. We have learnt so much since the Black Saturday bushfires. We're now in a situation in which there was thankfully no lives lost within this current tragedy, and whilst there was a number of properties that were lost, it was certainly down on what we've had in the past. I'm not trying to minimise it, and I know for many people it was an absolute disaster, but I would like to congratulate again our emergency services personnel, who I think have responded excellently in these times. Can I also mention on a more brighter note some of the things that have occurred in and around the Shire? Can I please congratulate the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, to come into our area on behalf of Council. I think it was wonderful to see the Prime Minister appear, and his $31 million in support of the McAllister Irrigation District is to be applauded. It is certainly something that over a number of years we have supported and encouraged and advocated for. It is a key part of our farming community, and to see $31 million going into those upgrades is absolutely special and grows our region as being the absolute food bowl of Australia. So well done to the Prime Minister for coming down and making that announcement. I notice also, and just picking out some of the exciting things, the Avalon Air Show was on, and whilst this year there wasn't the razzmatazz maybe of previous years, there was a huge amount going on at Westsale, the opportunities that are occurring at our Westsale Airport, and all coming in conjunction with the C103 amendment, which is currently going on there as well. What is a key is the Federation Training is now expanding their avionics section. We are now the base of avionics within the state of Victoria, which I think is really special. And of course the synergies with that and the RAF bases is incredible. So that is allowing us to grow our avionics sector. And this is what we've been talking about. When you invite the RAF down into your community, it's these kind of ongoing employment activities for our young people that I think that we can celebrate. And I congratulate the Mayor and the CEO and others who are at Avalon pushing that. To some of the other things that are occurring in and around Sale this time, our swimming school at Aqua Energy, and I can really congratulate the fact that our enrolments in the swim school are at an all-time high, and I think that is to be commended. As I think all of us tragically know, deaths by drowning is the #1 cause of death amongst young people between the ages of, I think, 1 to 5. So the fact that so many of them are being trained and taught how to swim is absolutely important for our local community. And so when you build something like Aqua Energy up on the hill there, you are also providing for young people to be taught swimming properly, and I think that's fantastic. Can I also congratulate the people at GRSC for the new timber flooring, which has now been laid and is away. It's a fabulous improvement to what was originally a wonderful centre. Can I also congratulate Councillor Bai, who's beside me here, who over many, since he's been on council and before, was advocating for that timber floor, and it's come to fruition, so well done, Councillor Bai. I also congratulate the Basketball Association for their patience in this matter, and recognise that they had over 4,000 participants in their recent tournament that occurred in Sale, which is very, very exciting. So, it's wonderful that our sporting facilities are being so well utilised. It's wonderful that we're getting, the encouragement of money coming into our communities. I mean, there are many other things I could mention. The startup program, which is occurring, is also a wonderful event. Even things like the date night, I'll mention that, because there you go. I took my wife to date night at Valentine's Day at the Gippsland Art Gallery, and we had a wonderful time. So I think that's wonderful. And what the gallery is doing is also quite stunning. So if you do get a chance to see some of the new exhibitions down there, there's a constable down there right now, isn't there? Which is just phenomenal. So if you want to see a fair income constable, you know, it's actually in the art gallery in Sale. It's just amazing. Anyway, I should also mention the figures while I'm at it, because it is as in the words of the great one, a beautiful set of figures. And indeed it is. If you look very closely at it, there's a surplus that's above what we were expecting. Most of this can be explained in terms of capital expenditure, which has been put off to the second part of the year. But there is a number of good news for the council. Some of them a little bit unsure about. The Grants Commission have given us a little bit extra money, about 1.4 mil. But the way the Grants Commission works, we're not sure about the timing of this. Sometimes you get more in one year and less in the next year, and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit uncertain in that. But the council's been very proactive in ensuring that we get our supplementary rates, and there's, I think, another $0.8 million worth of supplementary rates. Interest on investments. So I think there's about a 0.8 interest on investments in there, which is wonderful. It's about taking our cash reserves and rather than just, you know, not utilising them, is ensuring that you are receiving interest appropriate to the money that you've got. So we had forecast that we would have a $5.5 million deficit. So we had forecast a $5.5 million deficit, and I can now proud to say that we've turned that around and we're expecting a slight surplus, and that's a forecast in February. Lots of things happen in February. So right now we're forecasting about $300,000 worth of surplus, but this is February. In February, you know, even Footscray looks like being premiers, but we all know that when the reality of the year goes on, many things fall by the wayside, and so what looks promising in 1 month can fall away pretty rapidly. But it is a beautiful set of figures, and I congratulate the staff. We should celebrate the fact that we are a responsible financial organisation that takes the custodianship of the finances of our ratepayers seriously and tries to get as much value as we possibly can. It is a good news story, and I think the fact that we've been able to turn it around and pretty much come out balanced for the year is to be congratulated, and I thank the staff for their hard efforts. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Your honorary membership of CPA Australia, I understand, is in the mail for you.
Thank you so much.
Could we move on to item C2, item C2.1, Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move the council note and receive the attached Assembly of Council records for the period 27th of February 2019 to the 13th of March 2019.
Councillor Ripper seconded that motion. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye. We'll move on to item C2.2, the Audit and Risk Committee minutes. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move that Council receive and note the minutes in brief, attachment 1, and the confidential attachment at item F1.1, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of 18th of February 2019, and point 2 as set out in the agenda.
Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion's carried. Councillor Stevens?
Yes, look, there's really nothing in particular that I think needs to be noted from the last minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee, Mr Mayor, but just apart from the observation that the committee's performing, I think, very important work, and obviously had a number of reports that were dealt with, and the committee between the councillors, council officers and the community members on that committee is working very well together. And I suppose I should perhaps there's one thing I should note, and just thank our Manager Community Services for her presentation on the audit that was done on this building, which was presented at that meeting. And I think, again, it just, it's been said before, but I'll just briefly say it again, it just highlights the fact that we had an extremely good outcome with the work and the project management on this project, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Moving on to item C 2.3, Remuneration Committee minutes. Councillor Hull.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The Remuneration Committee meets quarterly as a committee of council.
Would you like to move it in the first place? Yes.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to move that Council noted and received the minutes of the Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 19th of February 2019 as attached, and 2, Council endorsed the action from the Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 19th of February 2019 as detailed in the attached minutes.
And that was seconded by Councillor Stevens, who was very quick out of the blocks then. So is that opposed? If not, motion's carried. Councillor Hall.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. The Remuneration Committee is a committee of councillors with our senior officers and CEO who review quarterly the expenditure as against the budget and make sure that we are operating as in the confines of what we have budgeted for each year. And I'm pleased to report that we are under budget. We're still one of the cheapest councils, and I mean that financially, to run, one of the cheapest councils in Victoria. But we also review some of the needs and wants that have been issued. One of them is the current cost of running a motor vehicle. And most councillors here outside the City of Sale, or all councillors, drive their own vehicles, whereas a lot of councils provide motor vehicles for their councillors to use. We don't do that here. The other thing that we're asked for an investigation on is the protection of the councillors, particularly the coastal councillors, who have to drive home through kangaroo infested roads and wombats, as to their protection, insurance-wise, should they hit one of these wildlife creatures and leave with substantial damage. So by the time we come back to our next remuneration meeting, please don't have an accident, because we've got to find out the result.
Thanks, Councillor Hull, and I'm happy to let you know that this very morning in the council-owned vehicle I took the appropriate evasive action and no claim was made, no accident occurred. So.
One very frightened kangaroo.
There was indeed. All right, moving on to item C3.1, planning decisions. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between the 1st of January and 31st of January 2019.
Seconded, Councillor Crosley. Is it opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
At attachment 1, we'll see the planning permit decisions for the month of January, and at attachment 2, we'll see the overview of trends in comparison to rural regional areas and the Wellington Shire's past action history. It's great to see that there's a number of properties listed this for the month of January on the report, and Yarram as well, with the activation of a quiet end of town with the dance studio. And it's actually quite good to see that that is actually being created in that part of Commercial Road, with the busyness of the mums and dads driving and dropping off their kids to that particular area. Section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 requests that proposals that may cause material detriment be advertised. This allows the community to be aware of planning permits and to have a say and be involved in the planning process. Links can be found for this on the Wellington Shire's website, or people can actually visit in person at the Sales Service Centre. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. Moving on to item C4.1, contract 2019-022 Briagolong Recreation Reserve Pavilion Redevelopment. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. It was with great pleasure that I move that Council adopt the recommendations contained in the attached confidential attended evaluation report at item F1.2, contract 2019-022 Briagolong Recreation Reserve Pavilion Redevelopment, and 2, the information contained in the confidential document item F1.2, contract 2019-022 Briagolong Recreation Reserve Pavilion redevelopment of this council meeting agenda and designated under section 77, clause in brackets 2, C in brackets of the Local Government Act 1989, as confidential by the General Manager, Build and Natural Environment on the 12th of March 2019, because it relates to the following grounds under section 89 bracketed 2 of the Local Government Act 1989. D. Contractual matters. B. Designated confidential information under section 77, clause bracketed 2, bracketed B of the Local Government Act 1989, except that once this recommendation has been adopted, the name of the successful tenderer can be made public.
Second of that motion, Councillor Hole. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. The current pavilion infrastructure at the Briagolong Rec Reserve needs a bit of an upgrade because of the it's not quite accessible for those who are not quite ambulant, and it does not have areas where female change rooms, etc., etc. And it can now become very friendly for all people to use, which will grow the area of Briagolong. Is a very, very important area, and they're very enthusiastic for their sport. They've got an excellent committee running the rec reserve, so I think it's all going to augur very well with a wonderful, wonderful new infrastructure, and it will be well cared for, well looked after, and it will be able to be a great fit within the Briagolong and area out there, with all people looking forward to the actual finishing of the new pavilion.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper, and I'm pleased to announce that the successful tenderer as RAL Construction Proprietary Limited. We move on to item C4.2, Place Names Committee Meeting Minutes. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council receive and note the minutes of the Place Names Committee meeting held on the 26th of February 2019.
Second, Councillor By. Is that opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you. As you can see, there are little business that I can talk about through this account. It's been, whilst it was a busy time for the Place Names Committee, there wasn't any actual things that we need to bring to you for. But I will say this, I think it gives us an excellent chance to congratulate the people who make up our agenda, and that is the people, the residents of the Wellington Shire. Pretty much all of our meeting is taken up with requests from people within the Shire for names of streets, of asking that their relatives be added to the particular names, or even suggesting we come up with different names for streets. And I'd like to say how proud I am of the ratepayers for doing this, for actually being involved in the naming of their own town. And I hope it develops some sort of confidence in the way councillors moving forward on this. Because these suggestions are very good. For example, can I give you a for example? Polo Cross Lane in Sale. Now, we would have driven past that many times, Polo Cross Lane, and a very keen-eyed person who knows better than I realised that, of course, Polo Cross is not polo cross. It is actually a combination of polo and lacrosse. So in fact, it should be spelt with an E on the end of it. But if you look at our street name, it hasn't got that E. It hasn't got an E. Now, for people and because it actually runs along a polo cross venue, to actually have the name of the lane that actually spells the very name of that sport incorrectly, that does not recognise the beautiful history of a polo cross, is, I think, something that should be mentioned to the Place Names Committee. We are currently asking the other residents of that street whether they're comfortable if we change it to what I absolutely believe it should be, and that is Polo Cross, and therefore we can proudly represent that street appropriately, demonstrating a group of people taking it upon themselves to tell council what they want, and hopefully we can make that happen. I should mention that polo cross was a sport that was in fact developed in Australia. It's an Aussie sport developed after the Second World War, and in fact the World Championships are being held in Australia this year. So it's a sport we should all be very proud of. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin.
It's spelled with an E.
If we could move on to item C4.3, application for unused road licence in Parish of Wonnangatta, Wonnangatta-Crooked River. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that pursuant to Section 400 of the Land Act 1958, Council give notice that the government road between CA2 and CA13, Section 15, Parish of Wonnangatta, is not required for public traffic and is therefore an unused road.
Second of that motion? Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you. This has come about because there's been an application by one of the landowners to lease the property from through to DELP, and as we are the authority that holds the registration of roads, it was also DELP put the out to public notice in November, and there were no submissions on that proposal. There is an agreement between the two landowners, either adjoining the road, that the emergency access will still be maintained and available according to the planning permits that were delivered for the dwelling on CA 15. So basically it's been a good outcome between two neighbours, and to actually utilise that unused land, which is a road which actually isn't a road, it's a track, and we certainly don't require it for public access. So now it'll be up to DELP to form the agreement, do the lease agreement with the property owner. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crosley. Councillor Bye. You've got to go, don't you?
Moving on to the next item.
We are moving on to the next item.
Yes, I've just got a declaration of conflict of interest and indirect interest with a conflict of duty, with the next item being C5.1.
Thanks, Councillor Bye. We'll just give you time to... So item C5.1, quick response grants. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving that the Council note the information regarding applications received under the Quick Response Grant Scheme for the period November 2018 to February 2019 as at Attachment A.
Second to that motion, Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. The Quick Response Groups have got a budget available of $130,000. Individual response group of $500, or not-for-profit organisations can apply for $2,000. Now, these grants within the Wellington Shire are able to help groups get a leg up to get a community event on board with funds that they've already raised. So it's available. They've spent $95,000 have been given out, and there's $35,000 left. So I would say to all the groups to look at your budgets, to look at what you want to do, and to apply for some quick response groups. As you can see up on the screen, there is Marley Street Community Hub has $500 and including celebration over the Christmas period. Sale Vintage Tractor Club, annual Longford Vintage Rally. As you can see, $2,000, and you can just see on, and I'm not going to call them all out. They can be read there, that there is money, and rather than saying we don't get this or that, apply for the grants. If you're unsure of how to go about it, contact one of these Shire staff. They will help you, and what it will do in the end is benefit all those people within the Wellington Shire. So I implore you to use up, don't leave any money left, use that $35,000, do not even leave 10 cents. We want to spend it all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Just wait for Councillor Bye to return.
Eating some grapes. Beautiful grapefruit.
So we're going to move on to item C5.2, Cameron Sporting Complex Committee of Management minutes. Councillor Holt.
I'm ready. That Council received the minutes from the Cameron Sporting Complex Committee of Management General Meeting held on the 14th of November 2018, including the financial statements.
Second for that motion, Councillor Crosley. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Hull.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, committee, as always, is functioning very well and working together as a great team. One of the things that came out of this meeting is the request has come to council for an increase in the maintenance budget, and has been brought about because of the new irrigation scheme that's been put in, which is fairly high maintenance, and also the fact that one of their user groups, which is the hockey club, has now come over to MAPRA, and the rest of the time in the last couple of months has been spent getting very excited, going over plans and documents for the new stadium and the redevelopment, and we'll look forward to giving you a great summary of that as it's happening.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hull. Item C5.3, Briagolong Recreation Reserve Committee of Management Minutes. Councillor Ripper.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Move that Council receive the minutes from the Briagolong Recreation Reserve Committee of Management General Meeting held on the 11th of February 2019. 2. The information contained in the confidential documents, item F1.3 Briagolong Recreation Reserve Committee of Management of this council meeting agenda and designated under sections 77 clause bracketed 2 bracketed C of the Local Government Act 1989 as confidential by the General Manager, Community and Culture on the 28th of February 2019 because it relates to the following grounds under section 89 bracketed 2 of the Local Government Act 1989 H. Any other matter which the council or special committee considers would prejudice the council or any person by designated confidential information under section 77 clause bracketed 2 bracketed B of the Local Government Act 1989.
Second of that motion. Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. You happy to leave that there where we are? Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Moving on to, is there any urgent business, CEO? Okay. Now, this is the part of the meeting where the gallery comments are an opportunity for members of the public to raise any particular matter they wish. This allows those in the gallery to speak directly to councillors, but it is not a forum designed for open discussion or debate. We will listen respectfully to what you have to say and make the commitment that the Mayor, that's me, will respond to you in writing within 1 week if required, and a copy of that response will be circulated to all councillors. Just going on, this is not a forum for members of the public to lodge complaints against individuals, including councillors and staff, particularly as that individual gets no public right of reply to any matter raised. We take complaints seriously, and in line with the guidance from the Victorian Ombudsman and the Local Government Inspectorate, we request that any specific complaint against an individual be put in writing. This way your concern can be properly dealt with while ensuring fairness to all parties concerned. If you wish to speak, we remind you that this part of the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on our website. Council official minutes will record that you have spoken to Council and the subject you spoke to Council about, but will not record specific comments. We ask that you state your name in full, where you are from, and you have 3 minutes. Is there anyone who wishes to raise any issues? Speak to Council. If not, any chat room? None. And I believe that we've dealt with that and there is no need to move into closed session tonight that I'm aware of. In those circumstances, I'll happily declare the meeting closed at 6:48.